Have you ever found yourself in a situation where God had to come through in a miracle working way to get you out of it or to make it right? Well, today, my guest not only went through an incredible journey of traveling overseas to adopt her daughter, getting trapped within the country, not being able to leave with her, but also how the Lord took this traumatic event in her life and turned it into the catalyst for her to write a story, for her to publish a book. And now she actually helps others to bring life to their stories. If you have a story to tell, if you've ever thought about writing a book, you don't want to miss today's episode of That Kingdom Life. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of That Kingdom Life. I'm your host, Latoya Lackey, and today I have with me a sweet friend. She is an author, she is a speaker, she is a coach, and she has an amazing story of triumph through great adversity that you are going to want to hear. So, welcome to the show, Miss Missy Maxwell Worton. Very nice to see you, Missy.
Thank you. So great to be here, Latoya. This is awesome.
I'm excited for our conversation today. You know, you and I met through a networking group in Nashville, a prayer group, if you will. It's not really a networking group. I just said networking, but it's a prayer group, but everybody loves each other in there. It's an amazing, amazing set of women here in Nashville. And that's how I actually came across you. And you stood out to me. I started following you on social media, and I wanted to bring you on as a guest. You have an amazing story. You wrote a book called Don't Mess with This Mama. And I want you to tell the people a little bit about yourself. And then I want to dive into your story because it is so amazing and deep and complex. And I want everybody to hear all the details. So go ahead, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am an author, and that was a Jehovah sneaky on me because I always, I grew up seeing story. And so one of my grammar teachers said, "Oh, no. You have atrocious grammar, so don't get into any story writing." And, she meant well. I know she did. But it shut me down for thinking I could be a writer. So instead, my friend said, "Man, you can develop movies and TV shows." So I went into that, really loved to write screenplays and things for film and television. And but my whole life has been a Jehovah sneaky. What I thought I'd do, God was like, "I'm just putting you here because this is going to lead to another open door, which is where I have you." So I am a mother of 4. 2 of those are adopted, 2 are biological. So I always say, I had to from my body, but then I had to from my heart. And so they're both from Ethiopia, just huge blessings in our world. But I became an author of a book after we rescued our 6-year-old adopted daughter from going into human trafficking. And I was not ready to become an author because of my grammar teacher. I'm like, well, I have atrocious grammar. And so a sweet friend of mine, his name's Howie Glosner, he said, "Missy, you write story. It doesn't matter. We have editors for grammar." So I was like, "Oh, well, that's good. I'm getting somebody
help with that." Yeah. There are people that can help with that now.
Yes, it's in their wheelhouse. Totally not in mine. Neither is spelling, actually, either. So
that's what autocorrect is for, right? Yeah, I'm that way as well. And thank goodness the Lord, it's so funny how the enemy will place people just to chop off what is a natural gifting or a natural inclination. I think of, the coaches that told Michael Jordan not to play basketball, they feel dumb now, but but it was really just an opportunity for the enemy to try to derail what was always your destiny anyway. So and I want to talk about the story with your daughter, and I want to talk about how you write books. So guys, y'all stay tuned through this whole episode because we've got a lot to go through. So tell me about, so I know before everything happened with your daughter, you were writing screenplays and things like that. Then you have this huge life event happen that really just changed the trajectory of everything. Tell us about that.
Well, it was in 2012, and we were in the midst of adopting our second child from Ethiopia. This time it was a little girl. Her name was Favor. It was just trouble from day one. And when we heard that she had been taken out of the orphanage into this false foster care. And the more we learned about this false foster care, we knew that it was not a foster care at all. It was a type of slavery. And so we were ready to go and do our second visit. We went out there, we met Favor and spent a week with her, fell in love with her, and then found out the people that were wanting to grab her and use them for our own reasons. And so we went back home. We did all we could. We get the call to come in to do our embassy appointment. They had no clue of what was happening. And so they're like, yeah, come on. But everybody else was saying, no, you can't come. She's not in the orphanage for you to pick up. That didn't stop us. We went ahead and boarded the last plane out of Dulles International Airport. We were flying out as Hurricane Sandy was slamming into the East Coast. And that's part of our story, because I was a white knuckle flyer, and, put me on a plane that was going into, a few clouds. I was like, yeah, it's all right. I'll wait for the next one. This was going straight into Hurricane Sandy. But I have to say this, you don't have time for fear when God has given you permission to be brave. And I knew that this little girl's life was in danger, and we had to get over there and rescue her. So we went to Ethiopia, and we landed in our own type of storm, and we went into a rescue mission to bring her home. And so we had to go in and rescue her, bring her out. But then the story goes that we got trapped there and had to hide away in the most radical Islamic area of Ethiopia, in the northern region of Addis Ababa, which, we'd always heard that Ethiopia was a Christian nation, and it is, but it does have a large sect in this one area that is very radical. And so Benghazi had just happened. So everybody knows what happened with Benghazi. And so we're hiding away in the middle at this Christian wonderful academy that was smack in the middle. We would wake up in the morning, and there would be a call to prayer on our left, on our right, behind us, in front of us. It was, and they use a bullhorn. And so I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Okay, yes. So that's just reminding me just to go before you and use this time for prayer. And so that's what I would do. And I learned to just, okay, this is what we're facing today. So how are we going to respond? And instead of not enjoying that, because it usually was off key. That's the same. You're going, oh, can we get on the note? Get on the note.
You're gonna do it, at least do it right. Yeah.
I know, at least do it right. So I would just go on my knees and know that this was a time that the Father had set aside for me to come into agreement with Him.
How long were you guys trapped there? Are we talking days, weeks? How long were you trapped?
No, a 4-day trip turned into a little over 4-week trip.
Wow. Wow. So very, very unexpected. I'm assuming you've got your other children here. Mm-hmm. You guys are there. Talk about that dynamic for a minute.
Well, we didn't realize how dramatic it was going to be. And so we had promised our daughter, who was 12 at the time, that she could go with us. And we both talked. I'm like, maybe we shouldn't be taking her. And he's like, well, we promised her, this could be the last and only time that she goes back to Ethiopia. And we just both felt at peace about taking her. So we did have one of our children, our daughter, with us, but our 2 sons stayed back here with Grandma Wharton. And she took care of them. But it was when we found out we were caught, my heart, we were trapped there. We couldn't leave. We could leave, but we couldn't leave with her, because they had taken, when we tried to go out of immigration, they surrounded us. The man who wanted her basically was very, very powerful in the government, and he reached in and stopped her leaving the nation. So they stopped us. We couldn't go out, so we went into hiding instead. And miracle upon miracle started happening, even from the moment that they stopped us. A person from behind me said, "Missy." And I'm like, I'm in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Who knows my name here? Nobody. And so I turn around, and it is a woman who works for orphans. She was bringing 2 orphans to some adoptive parents in America. So she had these two sweet babies with her, and she goes, "How can I help?" And I said, "They've just taken everything. We can't leave with favor." And she goes, "This is so unusual. I've never seen this happen." And it doesn't happen. But favor was one of those that, God had a story, and he was writing her story and ours in the meantime. So she immediately handed her phone over to us. She said, "I won't need this once I leave Ethiopia, but it'll work in Ethiopia. My daughter is here, who I knew." And she said, "I'll have her turn around and pick you up and take you to a safe place so that you can stay the night." And so we did. We went to a sweet little B&B that was owned by a Christian family who just loved on us because we were devastated that we couldn't go.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, that's so traumatic. And you talked about, the bravery of God coming on you in those moments. I mean, that's something I've experienced even in overseas travel and different situations you find yourself in. It's like people, I mean, I just had someone ask me last weekend, I said, I'm going to another country soon. And they said, "Aren't you scared? Don't you get worried?" And I said, "No, absolutely not." It's like this, I call it your transformer moment. It's like you go from the bumblebee to the big road.
Yes, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, it's like you go into this,
Yeah.
no fear kind of thing. Talk about what that's like. Like you're standing there in this circumstance. I mean, you've got two children back in the States. You and your husband and your daughter are there. You can't get your other daughter. Immigration has your passport, whatever's going on. Like, talk about the grace and the strength of God in that moment.
Well, that is such a great question. And I believe that grace is built and you are fortified in those times beforehand. That's why our daily time with the Lord, our daily time and just being before him and seeking his face, I would spend time just in worship with him, just me and him, just worshiping. And one day I decided, "Father, will you show me how you see me?" And this was about maybe 3 months before we were getting ready to go through this. And all of a sudden, I see this vision of a warrior next to a lion. And of course, I know who the lion is. But that warrior, I was like, "Well, wait a minute. I thought it was bright. I thought I was all pure and bright." He goes, "No, you're a fierce warrior." And I had to shift how I saw myself to how God saw me in this moment. And I started shifting in it 3 months, 90 days. It's amazing because when it happened, there was something that was already fortified within me. It was in my DNA that rose up of who I am. And I saw myself as not Missy, just a human being. I saw myself as a daughter of a king. And I was like, "Wait a minute, you are messing with the daughter of a king here, and you are messing with another daughter of the king." And so there was something that came over me. I had no fear. I would look men in the face and say, "You can't do this to us, and let me tell you why," and just speak really strongly. And they were like, this, of course, I looked up to all of them because I'm 4'11" in a few,
Yeah.
gains of a few inches.
Yeah. That's right.
But yeah, so I do believe God fortifies you. So when that moment came, I already knew we were going to make it. And you got to understand, before that, Chris Overstreet, I don't know if you know who Chris Overstreet is. He's a precious man. He was on Father of Lights. He was on God's Finger. I mean, I can't remember all of those right off the top of my head, but I had gone to see him in Nashville, Tennessee, Franklin, Tennessee. And in the midst of it, he pulls me up and he gives me two scriptures. He says, "You need to hold on to Ephesians 3:20. Not sure what you're going through right now, but Philippians 1:7. Just know that what God has started, he will be faithful to complete it in you. And you need to know that he will do more than you can hope or imagine." I'm like, "Oh, those are pretty. I love those scriptures. They're some of my favorite." And then he proceeded to tell me some other things. Well, when we landed, after the roughest flight in history of my life, we were sitting in, getting ready to check into the Hilton at Addis Ababa. And my husband's up checking us in, and the elevator dings. And I'm a curious person. So I look over, and who walks out but Chris Overstreet?
Wow.
The very person in Franklin, Tennessee. This is what I mean. I counted over 51 miracles in my book after I wrote it. 50. It's things we don't see when we're going through it, but I just want to encourage your listeners that you may be going through a really hard time, but God is performing miracles that you do not see yet. So just know, if you're in the situation, lean into him, and he has a plan to help you and to sustain you and to get you to higher ground, and to be glorified in what you're going through. So, but Chris grabs my hand. He said, "Are you here for Hurricane Sandy? We got brought here in Addis Ababa. We're on our way to Rome, and they stopped here and dropped 300 people off." And so I'm like, yeah, God did that because of us, probably.
Wow.
Because God needed to just, okay, Missy, you're going to go through a hard time, and I'm just going to give you a few things so you can hold on to. And when he started praying, I just said, we're here to rescue our daughter. She's been taken out of the orphanage. We're trying to get her before she falls into the wrong hands. She had not fallen into the wrong hands yet. And so he starts praying. And as he's praying, he's just like, Father, I thank you, because I just see favor walking before them. I hear in my heart, Father, you are bringing favor to this situation. Kept saying favor. And so I thought, well, did I tell him her name was Favor? And so he finishes. I'm like, thank you so much. And his wife was with him as well. And I said, did I tell you her name? And he said, no, you didn't. And I said, her name is Favor. And he just starts laughing. He just goes, oh my goodness. He said, I just kept hearing God just up on my heart say, let them know that I've given them favor. I have given them favor. And he goes, so he kept saying it. So I kept saying it a different way. And I'm like, okay, I need to hear that, because we're getting ready to go into a storm. And we don't know how it's going to look.
Yeah. So. Well, that's so good. And you bring up such a good point. You know, I think a lot of times we don't know what we're made of until we're put to the test. And it is those times, you're so correct, and so much wisdom there, that God is so gracious and so loving that he prepares us ahead of time beforehand. Like we don't know when the storm is coming. A lot of times, you know, when you have those life-changing moments, that phone call that changes everything in a split second type moment, you have that happen. And it's like, in the moment, the chaos is going on. But so many times I've seen the same thing in my life. So many times God will have given me a word or a scripture or spoken something to my heart months before that he'll bring up in that moment of chaos, in that moment of the storm. And he'll say, hey, remember this word, you know, and he's so gracious, I feel like, in doing that. And so I think that's why, too, it's so important when the Lord is giving you those words of spend time with me, come away with me, prepare with me, rest. It's because there may be a season coming up that you're not going to have a lot of that, and you need to draw from it. So it's so important to be led in those moments. I love those divine moments, those divine appointments as well. Like you said, with Chris getting off the elevator. And I mean, just there's times when you look around and you're like, there's no other way except this was God intervening. So you've been there for 4 weeks. She's in the foster care system, right? So what happened? How did you guys get her? Tell us the rest of the story.
Well, we actually went in and we rescued her in that first 4 days that we were there. And it was us going in and rescuing her with the help of her aunt. And the way it works in Ethiopia, they don't adopt anymore, sadly. But the way it worked is if a relative would come forward and claim an orphan, then they could take the orphan out of any situation. So she went in and claimed her because she wanted her to go to America. She was like, that's the only way she has a chance. She's a beautiful girl. And so she was a target. Ethiopians overall are gorgeous. Male, female, they're just, I think God just spent a little extra time. And they're tall. Most of them are tall. I'm like, my goodness, gorgeous people. But yeah, so we rescued her, and then that's when we were trying to get out of Ethiopia that they stopped us, and we knew we could not get back on that flight without her. So that's where we went into hiding in a totally different place. That's where we were in the middle of radical Islam. And we lived it out, and we had to travel through some of the hardest, some of the probably most dangerous parts of Ethiopia, where people would just surround our car. They would start beating it. And of course, they wanted money. So they wanted food, money. They're starving. And so they pretty much told me, you need to start covering your hair, covering as much of yourself as you can, because you're attracting
Yeah.
attention. And so I would go and I'd have my hair wrapped and me completely covered. But what happened through that is just constantly we would have to go see a judge. And here's the other miracle. God provided the judge that had okayed our adoption in the first place. And she was a lovely woman. And when we came in, she looked at us and she said, I approved your adoption. And I said, you did. You did. And she goes, so what's the problem? And so what happened is, because we stayed and fought, we became a voice for all of those who they were holding back from going with their adoptive families back to America, and they were going into this false foster care. The couple that came before us, that they came in for their child, they found out that they couldn't. The child was taken to the same place, and they said, "Okay, we're just going to leave. We'll pick another child." And with us, we were like, "No, no, we are here. What's going to happen to her? What is she safe?" And they could never tell us she would be safe. And so we weren't going to leave.
Wow.
And the amazing thing is, the person who was fighting against us, there is a person, we'll never know his name, we'll never know anything other than every child that went to him ended up missing or mysteriously dying. And so that's where she was going. And so once I knew that, there was no turning me around. There was, we're going to rescue this child. But because of his power, he had the other individual, who was a federal court judge, turn on us, not the woman that we had. She was a brave woman. And I know she was a woman of God, but turned against us and started declaring that we were the traffickers, that we were the ones that were coming in to traffic this little girl and take her back to America and use her for slavery, which could not be. I mean, when you put together a dossier to just adopt a child, they know everything about it. There are no secrets. We weren't interested in that area. We were just wanting to give a home to a precious little girl. So we just continued to fight. Every time we showed up, we didn't know if we were going to be walking out and going to a third world prison, because we knew he was powerful, and we knew we had to continue to fight.
Man, and that's where you have to know that God told you to do this, and then to stand in that. But to me, it's like, people maybe will hear your story and be like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could endure, what if I was like that other parents that just said, well, just give us another child. Some people have the fight and some people don't, but I feel like you do have the fight when in your knower that God said it, kind of thing. It's like, no, I know God said this. I know this is our daughter. I know that we're meant to do this. Then that's where that holy bravery and gumption comes from, I think. Yeah, that's amazing. So you guys have had her now for a long time. I know she's like an adult now.
Right? She's in her second year of college. So she's thriving, and she's a hard worker. But so she's the beautiful thing is that she did come to America. She has loved it. She has friends. She's thriving in life. So I'm happy that she is where she is.
Praise God. Yeah, thank God that you guys fought for her. That she knows. I'm sure that she knows that she was worth the fight. So I'm so glad that you guys were there to fight for her. So continuing, going back to that crazy teacher in school that said you couldn't write. No. So you come back. You obviously are in the throes of life, of motherhood, of work, of doing all the things. When did you decide? You know what? I think I am going to try to write a book. And how did that
Ah,
come about?
that's a good one. Well, when we came back, we were met with a lot of film crew. A lot of the news stations picked up our story, and so they were there to see us arrive from Ethiopia. And after that, we had about six production companies approach us to do the movie. And so we met with all of them.
Oh,
But one of them specifically said, I want you to write the book. And I said, oh, I don't write books. I don't write books. And I told him the story of my teacher. And that's the one, Howie. He said, oh, that's why we have editors. So I said, okay, God. I gave him my yes. And I started writing the way I write film. So I knew there was a hook at the beginning. So how was I going to hook them? There was a dream that had happened with one of the orphans there that showed a python spirit coming in and separating some children out. And was basically, you know what the python spirit is? That's what that dream was about. It was to squish the life out of them, to take their livelihood. So, but it also was going to try to take our livelihood. So I just started writing the book, and he said, once you get one chapter done, will you send it to me? And I sent it, and he was like, done, let's do this. And so I finished the book. It took me 7 years through the time that I was writing this book. It didn't happen fast. I finished it in 90 days. Done. 333 pages. I love the number of pages. And then I finished it, but then my mom and dad went into hospice. So I kept going back and forth between New Mexico to take care of my mom and dad. And so, we said goodbye to them. They got to go into glory. So I had that time period of mourning, and it was just really hard to go any further. But then I was also concerned about some of these people that were in the book. I couldn't get them to sign off on using them. So I had to change a lot of their names, and I had to get all these notes signed so legally we would be safe. But then my brother passed away. Just out of the blue, that I had 18 months where I lost my best friend from high school, my dad, my mom, and my brother, and my dog. And I was like, hold up. I'm getting mad.
Yeah.
I'm getting mad. You're taking too much. I wasn't blaming God, but I knew something was trying to keep me from fulfilling the callings of God upon my life. And I wasn't going to blame God, because he was good to me. But it took 7 years to finally get it done. And when it did, it started coming back with awards. And the first award, I was blown away. And the second award, and I believe it's up to 16 at this point, where I've either won the top award or been runner up for it, or I think I got a third place in there too. But it's just God saying, I just told you, if you just write, I will bless it. And so people started coming up to me, and they were like, Missy, I feel like God has a book inside of me, but I do not know the first thing about writing a book. But can you teach me? And so it was kind of funny, because I thought, well, sure, I'll teach you. Let's have coffee. That wasn't going to work, because after a while they're like, well, how can you keep me accountable? And I'm like, no, you just do this. You go in, you just write it. And it got to where I had so many, I just said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do a 5-day challenge. I'll teach you for about 45 minutes to an hour a day. And then I'll give you sheets that you can work on. By the end of it, you'll have enough information to finish your own book.
Yeah.
And so I did it. At the end of it, after the second day, people started saying, do you have like a coaching program I could sign up for? And I'm like, no. So I finally went on my face before the Lord, and I said, Father, I really don't want to be a coach. I've done that before, and it's like herding cats. You're just everywhere. And I don't, and he just, I'll never forget what he said. He said, Missy, there are women out there who have a message, and until they need help telling their message in a way that will impact hearts, they need to be healed in the process, and before they can step into the callings which I have created them for. And you're standing, you are a bridge. You are a bridge. And I just wept, and finally I said, well, not my will but thine, not my will
Wow.
but yours, Father.
Yeah.
And I came back and I offered what I thought, nobody would take. And almost everybody took it. And I'm like, oh, great, I'm a coach. So we just started meeting Monday, Thursday. I would inspire them, and then I give them a strong teaching during the week that helped them from beginning to end. And then Jehovah Sneaky happened. That was Jehovah Sneaky. Then I saw, every time I said, I told the women, I said, if you're going into a very a painful place, can you just give me a call and let us know so we can pray for you when you're going into those areas that are very painful, because we don't want you to go back through the trauma, but yet we want to be there for you. So so that's what we did. And then I got a inner healing woman to come in and help with everything.
Wow. That's amazing. And it's so important because, we're made overcomers by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And so many times I think the enemy keeps people in shame and
Yeah.
regret and
Yeah.
fear of, well, if people knew my story, if they knew the real me, if they knew what really
Yeah.
happened,
Oh, yeah.
they would love me more, or they would reject me, or whatever it is that the lie is telling you guys, and it's so, like, talk to the person that's watching this right now that's like, I do have a story, and I know that it would be a powerful story to share, but I'm scared. I'm a little scared to share it. What would you say to her
Oh my
watching?
goodness, that's good. It's all of us are scared. When you're telling your story, you're coming into a very vulnerable spot in your life. And the best stories are always going to come from those authentic parts of your story, what you were thinking, what you were feeling. And even in my book, I was mad at my husband because he did not leave when I told him to, and that's what caused us to get caught. Well, I am very honest. As a Christian woman, I was angry at my husband. I had submitted. I didn't want to, all these things lined up. But I cannot tell you how many people have come to us and said, not about, thank you for rescuing, an orphan. No, thank you for showing us what a real marriage looks like and how you guys worked out the marital problems you were having during this huge, volatile, traumatic event. And so, because we were fighting, because I was angry, I thought we were there because of him. I didn't think real clearly at that. But so the Father laid on my heart, be honest. Be honest with your thoughts. I want you to be as vulnerable and authentic as you can. But one of the things I will say to you is your story. God already knows your story. He's in every single detail of your story. Everything since you were a baby works into your calling of what God has called you to. And who knows that your story is not something that when somebody reads it, they are going to awaken to the fact that, wait a minute, I'm going through this. This is the answer that I have been looking for. And I'm watching that she walked through the same fears. She made the same mistakes. She got hurt the same as me. She thought the same as me. And she made it out. And look at her now. She's an author. She's speaking. She's doing all these things that glorify you, God. And now people are getting healed because of her taking her story up and arming herself with her story, because it is Revelation 12:11. For the weapon, that basically is by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony that we will take out the enemy. And so we take out the enemy every time somebody reads our story and says, I see myself and I'm going to do that. And Father, right now, I give it. And you say the same prayers. They say your prayers. They do all that you've done, and they pull themselves out of the pit through the help of your story. A perfect story never helped anybody, and it's the most boring thing ever. And I always tell my ladies, I said, if you never made a mistake in life, then basically you're not real.
Right.
Because we all,
You're just a liar, actually. Let's be real.
the only person I know that has walked this planet Earth that did not make a mistake is Jesus, and they still killed him.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
let's look at that, the
Not
Son
you.
of God. But we have
Yeah.
to remember that our mistakes are part of our story. And when we overcome those, we help people to heal through the way we heal. And I just really
Yeah.
want to encourage you, write your story. Even if you don't want to ever publish it, when you write it, you heal in the journey, because all of a sudden, this is the way it is. You get 1,000-foot view of what God has done in your life when you write out your story. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, there was a miracle. Oh, there's a miracle right there. Oh, if God hadn't done this in my life, I wouldn't have been here. And that boss that made me angry pushed me to this job, which is where I met my husband. And I mean, you will see God all over your story. But
yeah, you start to see how he connects all of the dots, and and it is a vulnerable place. I'm starting to write my book, as you know, and it's like there are pieces of that as I'm writing, it's like, oh my gosh, like it still feels so raw even at times, and it's like, man, I thought I healed from that years ago, but then I'm seeing other aspects of it that I hadn't that I've forgotten about, or I'm starting to experience feelings again that I haven't even allowed myself to fully feel, and it's like, man, it feels so vulnerable. But at the same time, I know, because I'm the product of the other side of the story, right? Like I've come out of all of that. So I'm able to, even as I'm writing, and I want to encourage you guys as you're writing your story that, even when you're writing, no, you're on the other side of that. Like you're looking back into the place that, that thing that happened to you, or that decision that you made. That's not who you are now. And, your story absolutely will help and inspire others. So if someone, I know people have all kinds of questions around, how do I write my story, and what does it need to be like? I love that you just told them, like, even if you're never going to publish it, write it for yourself, write it for your family, write it for them to find after you're gone. I don't know. Write it and burn it. I don't know, but it does help to write it. It does to do that. But for those that are navigating even the journey of like, okay, I feel like I do have a book in me. I feel like I have a story to tell, or a life lesson learned, or a dramatic, few months like you spent, that kind of thing. How would you encourage them to begin to start, and what things would you warn them about even as they begin that journey?
The first warning I'll say, it's not easy. But you have to choose your heart. I mean, we have to choose our heart all the time. So if your heart is in getting this book out because you want to receive the healing for yourself, and in turn, healed authors write healed books, and readers who read those books get healed. So one of the things that I would say is, the first thing you do is ask yourself 3 questions. The first is, why do I need to write this book? Why is the need in me to write this? Have you, there's a lot of things you may have heard. You may have been told in church, the God just is really telling me and highlighting you that you're going to be an author. That could be something that happens. But the other thing is, you've always thought this would be a great book, or you talk to somebody and they're like, man, that would make a great movie or a book. You know who you are, and you have that desire to share the revelation that you've gotten in your life. But one of the things is, why is that the passion, and your why is connected to your passion. Your heart's going to beat faster when you know this is one of the reasons that you're writing this book. But the other thing is, sometimes when you think about it, your eyes tear up, your throat even gets a little tight, because you're like, man, I've got to get this out. I've got to get this out. And so you'll know your passion is connected to your heart, and it really makes an impact on you when you're, like, for me, it was letting people know the tragedy of the false foster care system. But I had a secondary one, which is let people know that we still serve a God of miracles. He will answer your prayers. He still is there. He still does miracles on our behalf every single day. We just don't see him. So I had 2, and a third one as well. There was very strong whys. The second thing they need to ask themselves, who am I writing this for? Who is my audience? Well, you can always look at yourself. I'll just use one of the examples that I have. One of the ladies in the group, she got a hold of some alcohol in her parents' home at the age of 12. She became an alcoholic. And that led to further bad decisions in her life, even all the way up to abortion. And so she tells her story. She's been totally redeemed. And now she's working with people to overcome alcoholism. She is helping them walk out those phases of laying it down and stopping the addiction, but she's also working with post-abortion girls that don't forgive themselves because they're just, it's one of the number one reasons for suicide is they can connect it to an abortion. And I'm just like,
Wow.
okay, if somebody like her could step in and say, look, forgive yourself. You were making the choice you thought was best at the time. You didn't know Jesus. You know a lot of these things that happen, and some people still they do it and they have no problem, aborting. But because of the mistakes and her life path, her book now is from all of the things that she chose poorly to that shift and moment of making the right choice and giving her life to God and walking in that truth of who she really was. She didn't know who she was before. So who is her why? Her why was her 20, 30 years ago. Your why is who you were because you have expertise, because you've lived your life and you've been in the pit, you've made the mistakes, but more importantly, you had to walk out of the pit to live the life that you're in now. That is the reason you're writing the book. And then the final thing, ask yourself, is what kind of message do I want to give my readers? Your readers are looking for, if you can imagine this, when a person finishes your book and they lay it down, what do you want to see them rise up differently in? What in their life is going to shift because they read your book? What message is going to come through like a clinging bell that says, this is something in my life I need to look differently at? So
that's fabulous point right there. I love that. Imagine the person laying down your book. They just finished it. How do they stand up? What do they feel? And I love that visualization. That's beautiful. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
But that's where everything is story. If we can visualize it, and that's why I tell people write in story, because just a list of do's and don'ts is how they teach our kids in school, and they don't retain that knowledge. It doesn't go to the heart. Whereas a story, that's why Jesus spoke in parables. It went to the heart of every person that heard it, and they could apply it to their heart, mind connection. You have a person that gets it, and it goes deep.
Yeah. It is. I mean, story really, I mean, guys, look at how Jesus communicated. I mean, he told stories, he told parables. I mean, it's a story brings you in and drags you into that, and especially I think when we can bring people into that moment and they experience it with us. And guys, again, that's what editors help with. That's what coaches help with. That's what AI is there to help with, whatever. But it's like when we can bring them into the moment of that story and help them to experience and feel our emotions, we have to be not afraid to look at our emotions in order to point them out for others. But it truly, as you've been listening to Missy even talk about her story, or the lady that with the abortion, her story, you're seeing yourself in certain aspects of that, or you're seeing things that inspire you or challenge you. And that's the exact same thing that your story will do for somebody else, So tell me, Missy, I know part of what you do with coaching and stuff, and again, this isn't like a commercial for Missy's coaching, but y'all should go check it out anyway. But what I know it's kind of a scary thing, like, I mean, I know people that have like paid absorbent amounts of money to have people help them with that, and they've gotten totally ripped off and stuff like that. Or, there's so much unknown because, there's a housewife watching right now that's just got an amazing story, but she's just like, I'm just a house. I don't know what to do. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know, the do's and don'ts of self-publishing or going with, a publisher and all of these things. So what are some tips maybe that you can give people towards that? Obviously, I know that you guys help with that, but what are some tips that you would give people just to keep your eyes and ears aware of as you are on this
Right. Well,
journey?
one of the best things to do is to talk to some of the people who have done their book. And they've done it rather through self-publishing, meaning what that means is they did everything. They wrote the book, they edited the book, which I don't advise editing your own book because we always there are blind spots and formatting.
I can't type a Facebook post. What are you talking about?
I mean, I'm not, and of course, me, I am definitely not the person to edit with my grammar. Not just grammar, atrocious grammar. But I love her. And by the way, let me just say this. She read my book. She came to me and she said, please forgive me. I remember saying that to you. And I said, you're already forgiven. She goes, you are a phenomenal writer. She goes, I just bless you. And I thank you. Thank you for not listening.
So
yeah. So she's perfect.
Hey, honestly, you were what spurred me on. I kept you in the back of my head.
That's how I became a film writer. So otherwise I would hardly written books. No, so there's God going, I don't want you to write a book yet because you don't have the story yet that I want you to write. And so beautiful.
Exactly.
But okay, you asked me a question.
So, yeah, so edit you. Yeah, so have someone help edit and spell check grammar.
That is self-published, and you upload it to Amazon, and Lord knows where it goes. So it doesn't sell itself, just FYI. Then there's the hybrid publisher. That is what we do with the Light Warriors, and we come beside you, and we make sure every step is taken care of. Make sure you're released from Amazon, as well as we get you in Ingram Spark so that people can buy you wherever they are. Any bookstore in the world can order your book. They can't do that with Amazon, but they can order your book through Amazon. But and then there is the traditional publisher. That is, traditional publishers, they look at people with high volumes of followers, big platforms, and they give them a certain amount of money to do their book, and then they give them a percentage. So that's where they don't pay anything. But with a hybrid, you do pay someone to make sure all the dots are dotted and the T's are crossed, and they make sure you get it out. If you find somebody that has done a hybrid, one of the things I would say is talk to them about what they liked about that company and what they didn't like, what they wish they would have had. And there you can find hybrid publishers from as low as ours to as high as $35,000 to do everything.
Wow.
So, and then I do know one hybrid that will get you a New York Times bestseller, but you're going to pay a six-figure income.
You're going to pay for it.
You get your New York Times bestseller. So, but it depends on what you want. And one of the things we do is we listen to what the person has. We first make sure it's a story that is with our publishing company, because Light Warriors, we are putting light into the darkness to conquer the enemy. We're using our stories as a weapon. I mean, it's if you see the sword right there, that's what we're about, taking the sword and taking down the enemy.
Yeah, come on. That's so good. Well, I know it's such a scary thing, and it seems like everybody's publishing books nowadays, because you can self-publish and put it on Amazon and whatever, I mean, anybody can do a book now, and it doesn't even guarantee that's going to be, even worth reading, but everybody can do a book. But I do love the idea of working, alongside someone like you that actually will help to make sure, like you said, that you have all your I's dotted and T's crossed, inside and outside of the book, and, and understanding what that process looks like, and to help challenge you to work you through. Because girl, I'm not even gonna lie, I've been saying I'm writing a book for like 15 years and it ain't done, it is not done, and it is nowhere even near done. But I think like one thing I've been struggling with personally over the years is, what is my story? What is the story that I want to tell? Because there's so many aspects of a journey, and I always say I'm kind of an open book where I share everything. Everybody knows my stuff. I don't even hide my struggles. Like, we just all out there. But with that, it's like, okay, what I love though what you said about like picturing the person that finishes your book and closes it and lays it down. I think it's oh gosh, I hope I don't get her name wrong, but I think it's Kristen Hanna, is that her name, that wrote The Nightingale. Have you read
I
that
have
book?
not, but I've
It's a
heard
fiction.
amazing things about it. Yeah.
It's a great book. Like if y'all want a good fiction book, go get that book. Okay. So I kept hearing about it. I picked it up and it was like, I mean, it's one of those
Yeah.
thick, fiction books, but it's based on true, it's inspired by
Yeah.
true events. Okay. And all of her books are about women and they're overcoming inspiring stories. And when you said that about how do you feel when you close the book, I thought about the moment that I closed the last page of her book and I thought, oh my gosh, like I want to be a woman that if I was faced with adversity like the women
Yeah.
in this book, that I would rise to the occasion like they did. Like, and then my next thought was, oh my gosh, I hope I never faced what they went through in this book, because it was, I mean, it was Nazi occupied France and all this other, I mean, it was like intense. But I remember that feeling that it gave me reading that book. I thought, wow, women are so resilient and so strong, and God created such an amazing gift
Yeah.
in women. And it just made me proud to be a woman and, to be a strong woman. And I thought, man, so as you're saying that, I'm like, those are things like, what do you want the people reading your book to feel when they close the pages? And if people like Missy, and I'm sure there's other ones out there as well that can help walk alongside you to help maybe even bring that story out of you just a little bit more, and to help you to solidify it and to put it in a way that's consumable. Because sometimes, I've also read stories that were incredibly dramatic and they were so, you couldn't even read the book all the way because it was so difficult, and it's like, so you want to put it in a way that's palatable for people, that they can handle it, and also that you're encouraging them and helping them. And so I love your heart for what you do. And you also help these women. This is me totally plugging what you do now. But you all, and I'm not a client of hers, just full disclosure here. Missy and I are not, I'm not a client. I'm not saying that I won't be maybe one day in the future, but I'm not right now. But I love something else that you do for your authors is you help them, like, go into that, what is it,
NRB?
NRB or NSB? Yeah, NRB, and helping them to get the word out, to get their story out there for people to discover them. Tell us a little bit about how you help your authors to be exposed to the world out there, to get their
Yeah,
story out.
absolutely. Well, it's one thing. I remember hearing somebody say, "Well, I'm going to write my book, and I'm not planning on selling it." And I thought to myself, why would you do that? You have such a great story, and people are waiting to hear your story to find their answer. And it's almost an injustice. So with the ladies, I kept hearing about authors in general were not selling very many books. Now, Audible is a little different. But so I thought, well, wait a minute. The way I sold a lot of books right up front is that I had a friend take me to NRB, National Religious Broadcasters. Now, of course, this is going to be for Christian books. So for my ladies that have
Right.
Christian books, I take them to NRB, wherever it is, and it's always in February. And we go in and we help them, we set up interviews with different TV shows, radio stations, podcasts, just different venues that they can be on, and they can talk about their message and get their message out so that their people can order their book and find their answer. So people are getting healed. People are getting the book and really going deeper and getting their answers that they're looking for, because people are looking for an answer. They're hurting. There's so many people hurting. And when an individual is talking about, that they overcame abortion, and this is how they did it, and this is what God has done in their life, somebody out there that's ready to just give it all up can go, maybe that's what's going on with me, and I need help. And so I'm going to order this book. I'm going to listen to this lady. And you have a wonderful way to step into your calling. But your calling isn't just the book, is the first thing that happens, because what happens next is now you speak to people about things that were in your book, that the revelations that God gave you in your journey. So you're sharing your journey, and that is going to be healing. And then on top of that, some of you may have courses for people to overcome different things. I mean, look what happened to me. All of a sudden, I'm teaching people how to write a book. But I mean, you don't know where God's going to take it. But the places that God has taken me because I said yes to writing a book, I would never have guessed it. It's Ephesians 3:20, more than I can hope or imagine. And NRB is one of those things that now we show up at NRB and everybody's like, warrior writers, come here. We want to interview you. And they're ready to go. We prepare them. We make sure they know how to interview. They have their one sheet and they can speak to their message. And that's what we've got to know, how to speak to our message, just not write the book only, but how to speak to our message so it has impact, just like Jesus did.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. This has been so good. I know people are watching right now and they're like, okay, I'm going to be brave. So I just want to encourage you guys, if you're watching right now, like, go grab a notebook and just write out an outline. I dare you. I double dog dare you. Just go write out an outline. If I were to write a story, what would it be? And how would I want to tell it? How would I want that person to feel when they close the book and they stand up and it's done? And then go from there and see what God does. Because I guarantee you, there are things, I know me writing my book right now, there are things coming out that I'm like, oh man, I haven't thought of that story in years. Like, that's an excellent illustration of XYZ, or, you know, whatever. And it's like Missy said, all of a sudden, God will start to connect all the dots in your life and you'll see how your story just weaves together into this beautiful tapestry that's going to be your book. And so even today, right now, before you do anything else, just take a few minutes and just go write on a piece of paper. Just see what comes out. I dare you to see what happens, because I believe God has a book in some of you that are watching this. It's not an accident that you're watching, and He wants you to put it on paper. So like she said, there are other people that are waiting to hear your story so that they can be healed. You know, I've told my mom, and I've said it on here before, I'm like, I've always threatened, I'm like, Mom, if you don't tell your story the second you were in the ground, I'm telling it. Like, you better get it told, because I'm going to tell it if you don't. Somebody's telling your story, because it's a movie of the week. It's an amazing story. And I'm like, she just, you know, she's so, you know, in the background, in the wallpaper most of the time. I'm like, nobody would ever believe what her life story is. And I'm like, Mom, it's amazing. You need to tell it. So I want to encourage you guys to do that. Missy is the best place for everyone to find you there at Missy Maxwell Worton.
Right. And if they're interested in, you know, just talking to me, they can book a call through that. If they go to MissyMaxwellWorton.com, there's a place that says book a call, and you just book a time slot, and I'll
book a call with Missy, y'all. It's free. She will charge you. Book a call and have that conversation, and let that be your second brave step. Maybe your first brave step is grabbing that notebook paper today, and your second one is booking a call with her, or grab a friend that's written the book. Ask the questions, guys. Just don't keep your story to yourself, because it is meant to be shared. It is your testimony. So thank you guys for joining us today on That Kingdom Life. Missy, you are amazing. You have inspired me and given me some things to think about. I will definitely be contacting you, I'm sure. So thank you guys for watching That Kingdom Life, and we will see you next time. Have a good. Hi, TKL family. Thank you so much for watching That Kingdom Life. You know, part of our mission here at Latoya Lackey Ministries is to help people understand hope, identity, and freedom. So we not only want to equip you with good, sound biblical teaching, but we also bring in people to have conversations, interviews, topics, all of the things. Now, this is a listener-supported podcast. What that means is that we don't have sponsors. We're not getting paid from other avenues. So I want to ask you sincerely, will you consider partnering with us? Not only are you going to help us to bring good content and quality to this show, but also your money goes to help support other things like the furtherance of the gospel. We have 4 trips planned overseas this year, and we are going into places where they can't afford to pay us to come. we're having to pay our own way. It's a missions trip, right? And we are going to equip leaders in churches. There's church planting happening. We're also going to do a couple of kids camps this year. And this is all in conjunction with a ministry friend of mine as well. And so we are, spreading the gospel, and we're doing the things that Jesus has told us to do, to train up, to empower, to equip, to release disciples making disciples. So will you please consider becoming a partner with Latoya Lackey Ministries? You can do that by going to latoyalackeyministries.com/give and become a monthly partner or sow a one-time gift. If you want to give towards missions, you can put a note in there for that as well. But every dollar helps, and I would so appreciate it. And I know that we are furthering the gospel together.